Hey, this is AJ. Welcome back to the Handyman process. In today's video, we're going to talk about this video. If you're a handyman, you've probably been seeing this pop up in your feed, in your YouTube feed. It's about an ex-Apple employee who starts a $13K a month handyman business. So I'm going to kind of break this video down to see if it's true or not, give kind of my perspective on the different chapters that are in there. I find it interesting because when I first saw it, it made me feel good, right? It was like, oh, this is a great story. And then you dig a couple of layers into it and you realize that that's a sponsored video. It's sponsored by one of the biggest companies out there in terms of CRM or customer relation management software, a company called Jobber. So they sponsored the video. And I don't even think in the entire video they mentioned Jobber. It's only in the details, right? What they do is they focus on the marketing perspective of making you feel good. Wow, I relate to this guy. He's a great guy. Ironically, he was an ex-Apple employee, or at least that's the description, but he worked in the maintenance department. So if you're a techie out there and you're like, I'm going to do what he does, if you work in the maintenance department, maybe. If you work in software coding and you've never changed a light bulb, it might be a little challenging. But anyway, let's go ahead, have some fun. Let's go ahead and break it down. And I'll give you my perspective on it. We'll go from there. Stay tuned. All right, so the first part of the video starts with an intro. It's a very nice intro. James, the handyman in this video, very personable. You know, you kind of get to know him, right? This is a marketing thing of, hey, get to know the guy we're about to talk to. He mentions a few things in there, you know, basically essential intro stuff. He started off with $450. They throw out the big number. I made $39,000 in the last 90 days. They didn't actually give you the breakdown of that. Did you charge $39,000 and only bring home 2? Did you charge 39 and bring home 37? So they throw that out there. It's like, wow, that's, you know, it's not a super money, but it's pretty good. But throughout most of this video, they don't actually break the numbers down. And when I mean break the numbers down is you have revenue and you have expenses when you run any business. So the numbers that people throw out a lot of times, even in some of my videos, the numbers that I'll throw out, most of them are revenue numbers. Once you start to take out the taxes, depending on what tax bracket you're in, let's say you're in the 22% tax bracket, you got 22% tax coming out, plus another 15% self-employment tax, plus all your other expenses that go along with it. So it's something to keep in mind when you're running a handyman business is that the numbers aren't really what people are saying in a lot of these videos. My recommendation here would be to trust the videos that actually break it down. What was the revenue? What were the expenses associated with this? Any other costs associated with making this, taxes, payroll, kind of the list goes on and on. All right, so the next part of the video, he gets into pricing. And he starts off by talking about, hey, I started off at $25, I went to 50, I went to 75, I went to 100. That is 100% true. When you first start off in this kind of business, you're most likely going to do that. And sometimes you charge by the hour, but more likely you use that hourly rate to estimate. Like when somebody comes in with a job to change something, you think about how many hours it's going to take you and you multiply it by that rate. So if we assume he kind of leveled out at $100 an hour, if you take that $13,000 that he makes a month, you divide it by 100, you end up with 130 hours. You divide that 130 hours by 4 weeks, and billable working hours, he's got 32.5 working hours to kind of pull in that kind of money. That's hands-on working hours. That's not back and forth, customers, marketing, all the other stuff. So probably add another 20, at least 20, if not 30 hours onto that. So you're looking at 50, 60 something hours a week to kind of pull in that kind of money. But even if you do the math, if you take 13,000, let's say you just take 75% of it, you end up with about $9,700 a month kind of take home. And you take, you know, whatever your personal expenses are, if you have health insurance and whatnot, that is pretty decent. I will tell you, it is not easy to fill 32 hours of $100 an hour jobs. It depends on the area that you're in. It depends on your relationships with people. It depends on competition. Competition is probably the biggest thing. He mentioned he's in Texas. I'm in Texas. There is a ton of competition. You just go on any Facebook or Nextdoor app and you see somebody asking for help for something, and it quickly becomes a race to the bottom. Nobody's in there saying $100 and so that's great, I'll be over there tomorrow. It's more like $35, $50. So you always have this kind of competition thing going on. So in terms of pricing, he's probably correct in terms of you'll go through that evolution up to a higher price Whether you can pull that money in consistently, it depends on the market that you're in. Some places you can, some places you can't. You have to constantly be marketing. You have to constantly be maintaining your presence. He did talk about maintaining his brand, his website, and whatnot. And in the video, there's links to that, so you can go ahead and check out his stuff. But overall, pricing-wise, I agree with his strategy and kind of how he went forward with that. So I think that's a pretty decent breakdown. All right, so next he jumps into a truck tour. It's got a nice truck. It's got a Tacoma, right? It's a little pricey. You can start off, if you're in this business, you can start off in any kind of vehicle. I started off with 2 vehicles. We had a minivan, a Chrysler Pacifica, and a Nissan Leaf, a little electric car that I got really cheap, by the way, which still is kind of my estimating car because that thing makes money every time I drive it. But I started off doing my jobs with that. I would say, I flip-flop between, if it was a big job, I took the van. I had to kick my wife and everything else into the other car, and then we flip-flop back and forth. And you can make that work because if you see some of my older videos, you see I run a debt-free business, right? I don't have any car payments. The only debt I have is my mortgage, but everything else is, I kind of just cash flow as I go along. So you will need some type of transportation to do this kind of work. Whether it's a truck or a van, like don't be one of those guys or those women are usually smarter, but don't be one of those guys that goes out and buys like a $70,000, $80,000 truck so you can make money. That's just a bad move. I'll go ahead and just say it's stupid. If you want to show off to your friends, go ahead, but you'd be in debt for a long time. Go buy a cheap car. Go buy something that gets you back and forth, something that you don't have to worry about getting stolen. Ideally, there's different schools of thought out there. Do I get a truck or do I get a van? Do I get a truck with a trailer? Do I get a van with a trailer? I think my personal perspective, the best thing to have is a van. And the reason I say that, especially one of the bigger cargo vans, is you can put a ton of stuff in there. You can leave it in there. You don't have to worry about stuff getting stolen. It's just all around kind of a better setup. With that being said, I use a Ford Ranger or the Chrysler Pacifica. And I'm constantly going back and forth with my Ford Ranger. I keep as much stuff as I can in one of my toolboxes, but I'm constantly putting stuff in and out, in and out, and in and out. So eventually at some point I'll switch over to the van. But that's kind of my take on the vehicle. I think it's somewhat straightforward in what he went through his truck tour. It's usually how most guys roll. They'll just throw a bunch of stuff in there and then go from there. I think he did have the quad cab, so that helps out a bit. I have a single cab, so that kind of limits me in what I can do. All right, so next we get into the most challenging day, and I love his answer. It was a day with no power and it was hot inside, which is uncomfortable. But as a handyman, you're gonna have a lot worse days than that. You're gonna poke a hole through the wall, go right into a pipe, or shut off all the electricity, or you're gonna put something in. A homeowner is gonna come screaming at you. That's not what I wanted. You're gonna drive into the driveway and run over something, and all the money for the job. Like the worst days. Like either he's lying or he doesn't have enough experience yet to get to some of the worst days, or the most challenging days. I'll be straight up with you. There's gonna be days that just suck. You don't anticipate them, or maybe you do anticipate them. You got a difficult client. You feel like I got to do this job. I already signed up for it, but in your heart, man, I got those red flags, right? Those red flags are popping up all over the place. Stick to red flags, right? If you not stick to them, but adhere to them. Like take notice of them. If you sense red flags, don't take the job. It takes you a while to get to there, because I tell you what, that's going to be one of the most challenging days. Like you had all these red flags, and then the crap hits the fan, and you knew it, and then now your most challenging day is some story about some crazy customer you had and everything that went wrong, and you lost all your money, and she wrote a terrible review. Like that's what a bad day looks like in the handyman business, and it's going to come your way. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. You can try to be as prepared as you can, but even the best stud finder in the world sometimes won't find something that's right behind the wall because the house was built wrong. These things kind of you learn over time of what to do and what not to do. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny, pretty interesting. So stay tuned for the next one. All right, so we're still moving along here. I'll pause here for a second, kind of get your thoughts. Am I being a little too harsh on this guy or this video? Or, if you're a handyman, you've seen this kind of stuff, let me know what you think. If you're not a handyman, and, let me know what you think right now of the video. Am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? Go ahead, drop a comment down below or hit a thumbs up. But the next thing we jump into are tools. And he's right on when it comes to tools. Everybody has different kits when it comes to tools. What you choose, what you want to do really depends on you. The best advice I can give you in that perspective is start with the tools that you have, and then as you take on different jobs, just kind of slowly acquire tools. Me personally, I like to have the same batteries for as many tools as I can. Personally, I use a mix of tools, but primarily most of my tools right now are Flex. That's a Lowe's brand, or Lowe's carries them. I don't think they're associated, but the reason I went with them is they had a lifetime warranty, which I've already taken advantage of once. But it doesn't matter. Like, get whatever tools you want to get. I use Flex for power tools. I use Milwaukee Packout for kind of storage, and then I use a hodgepodge of other things. The big thing is to be organized, and whatever tools you have, try to be organized as best as possible, because you never know what you're going to need for a job. Like, hopefully you can think through it before you get out there, but inevitably you're going to need a tool. And if you can have that tool with you, if you have the foresight to think about it and have that tool with you, that works. And his setup, pretty straightforward. It's what most handymen will have. And then you'll slowly add to it depending on the jobs. Me personally, I have little pack out kits for different things. So if I do electrical, I know I'm going to grab my electrical kit. If I'm doing plumbing, I got a plumbing kit. If I'm doing safety bars, I got a safety bar kit. And then I have my just generic tools. I have my toolbox, my primary one that just has pretty much everything I need for any type of job, and I go from there. All right, so next we get into scaling the business, and he starts to talk about the need to have people on board for administrative purposes, for extra work coming in, for marketing, those types of things. If you run a full-time handyman business, you're going to come to this point as well in your business, that you start to think about scaling. Do I want to scale? Do I want to take on employees? He talks about 1099 folks. Like, what do I want to do, and how do I want to do that? So it is a thought that kind of goes on, and I thought they did a pretty good job in there. The subliminal messages underneath all this stuff is the things that he's mentioning. Jobber provides that, right? Jobber can help you expand. It can help you grow. Like, these are the things. This is the subtle kind of marketing that's going on just in the video. And whether it's Jobber or Marcate or all these other tools out there, you'll have systems in place to kind of help you expand and help you grow. So again, he was right on in that spot. All right, so next part of the video jumps into how much can you make in this kind of business. And he starts to break down. He's got his weekly goals, his daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals. That's a good approach to doing it. You need to know how much money you need to make for your lifestyle when you run a handyman business, especially if it's your sole income. Because there's a lot of people out there that say, just quit your job tomorrow, go for it. But it really depends on your lifestyle. Like, if you don't need a lot of money, it changes things. If you do need a lot of money, it changes things. There's no set course on this, but the way that I like to break it down is, if you're making less than $30,000 a year, quit your job, become a full-time handyman. If you're making 30 to, let's say, 90, actually, let's go up. Let's say you're making 50 to 90. Start off on a part-time basis, kind of see how you like it, then kind of make a decision from there. If you're making well over six figures, if you're making mid six figures, or like, let's say you're making $130,000, $140,000 a year, it is going to be tough to pull that kind of money as a handyman, especially as a solo person. If you're running multiple crews and you got all the other stuff, they got the babysitting and the headaches that kind of go along with that. Yeah, you can kind of pull in those kinds of numbers. But if you got a cush day job like I do, pretty straightforward day job, you might want to consider just being a part-time handyman and just going for, whatever those goals are. I want to take a vacation. I want a little extra money here and there. Christmas is coming up. You want to put some more presents underneath the tree. Then you have a little bit more flexibility with that. My advice here is, don't just quit your job tomorrow. And we're getting ready to roll into 2024 and you're like, screw my job, I'm leaving. Is that bad? Then maybe. But if you're on the fence, if you're, like me, a little later in your career, you're somewhat established, you got a lot of benefits that you're walking away from, give it some time. I would say at the very, very least, give it 6 months working part-time, see what kind of numbers you can pull in, see the ups and the downs, because there's seasons to this kind of work, right? We're in December right now leading up to Christmas. If you install Christmas lights, you're great. If you don't, things are slowing down a bit. So understanding what your numbers are, what you need to make a week, a month, or whatever to maintain your lifestyle. Is there somebody else in your household that's providing medical insurance? All those other types of things. Really think about it before you kind of jump off. There's no There's no problem with starting part-time. Just make sure you have some insurance in place. Start part-time, do a few hours here and there, kind of see if you like it or not. And then if so, then kind of go from there. All right, so in the final two parts or two chapters of the video, he talks about advice and what you need for success. And I've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth watching the video. He did mention Jobber, right? He mentioned it at the end, like tools like Jobber. So they built all this emotion stuff up, right? And the Jobber bomb gets dropped. That's just a marketing thing. So just keep that in mind when you watch this video. This video is made and produced by Jobber. They just highlighted one handyman in this video. But he's absolutely right. You at some point, if you decide I like this kind of work, you're going to want to systematize. You're going to want to have a CRM, whether it's Jobber, Markate, or one of the other CRMs that are out there to kind of manage your workload. He didn't actually get into it in the video of how that kind of stuff works. Most of my videos kind of focus on that. But go ahead and check out some different videos on the different systems that are out there. I'm not going to tout mine. It's just the one that I use. But if you go to iamhandy.org, I'll put some verbiage up here. iamhandy.org. I put a little software section there that talks about Jobber and Markate and House Call Pro and some of these other software systems that are out there. It's tough to say which system is going to work for you, right? They all do kind of somewhat similar things, and it's almost like trucks. I'm a Chevy guy, I'm a Ford guy. Like whatever works for you, whatever price point works for you, functionality. Just do your due diligence. Don't just take a video's word for it. Maybe try out some of these different systems and see which one works for you. And then a final thing about what you need for success. There are a lot of, if you want to be successful and stay in this business, there are a lot of soft skills or people skills associated with this. Being handy is a requirement to be a handyman, but being personable, being reliable, trustworthy, these are the things that will get you jobs over and over again. And I think they did a good job in choosing James here because he is personable, right? At least he comes across that way in the videos. So at the end of the day, people want someone they feel comfortable with in their house, right? So if you can have that persona, if you can communicate clearly, if you use some tech to help facilitate that, to bolster up your professionalism, then it kind of works out pretty good. So overall, in summary, I like the video. Like I said, it reminds me of one of those ESPN stories kind of behind the scenes where they get into the family and it becomes a tearjerker, right? They're working at your emotions with that stuff. The same thing with this. This is very similar to what it's like to be a handyman, going back and forth. The money is good sometimes. They didn't really talk about a lot of the negative stuff that kind of goes along with it, the down days, the tough days, stuff breaking, bad reviews. That stuff happens too, but that doesn't make a good story, right? Takeaway with this whole thing is do your due diligence. Look at a bunch of different resources that are out there before you decide to make a move like this. Don't just watch one inspirational story, but look at multiple aspects of getting into the business and decide if it's something that you want to get into. Anyway, hope you liked the video. If I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and take care. Bye.
Step into the unknown, 'cause this is where dreams are born.